Uh, hey, good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you to a very, very special episode of K9 Legends and Trailblazers. I've been waiting on this one for probably since I started this show. I'm very, very happy to introduce to you guys Mr. Nick Fontaine. Nick has just recently retired after 26 years in the United States Army Special Operations Command as a K9 handler, K9 trainer, K9 SME. Good morning, Nick.
Morning, Joe. How are you? Good to see
I'm
you.
I'm good, brother. So good to see you. I think that the last time I actually laid eyes on you was in North Carolina. It was there was a memorial statue that was being uh, displayed for the first time, and I'm walking through there and I hear somebody go, "Joe, Joe," and I look around and it's this big hippie with long. I was like, "Who the fuck is that?" He was like, "It's Nick." I'm like, "Oh shit, hey man, what's up?" So yeah, it's been that long since I've actually seen you. It's always good to catch up with you, stay in touch, man. I always enjoy our conversations. Uh, but I want to talk about you today, man. You've had an extraordinary K9 career, and you are just what this show is made for, man, to highlight those. And we do a really good job of highlighting our four-legged heroes, which we should. We always should. But there's a lot of things that go along with getting those dogs to where they need to be, as far as from a handler perspective, a trainer perspective, instructor, supervisor. So we want to highlight you today. So, Nick, I know you did 26 years in the Army, but tell me what Nick was doing about, I don't know, 6 months before Nick said, "Hey, I'm going into the Army."
When I realized college wasn't going to be for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And funny thing about it was it wasn't a plan. I got a postcard in the mail from the Army recruiter and it just had a free t-shirt. I signed up for the free t-shirt. Like a week later, the recruiter was at my door and got me.
Oh, nice, nice, man.
It's
Well,
crazy. I had no plans on going in.
hey, everybody likes some free shit, man. So,
Yeah.
I'm down. I'm down. So you joined the Army. Did you know you were going in to be a military police to start? Like you signed up for that?
Yeah, I did. It was at the time it was kind of hard to get. I don't know if that was a recruiter game or what, but after a week or two, they were like, "Okay, we'll give you MP."
Yeah, yeah, nice. So you went in guaranteed with the job that you wanted. You go through boot camp, and then you go to military police school. And at that time, and you might date yourself by saying where you went, but where did you go to MP school at?
We did that one station unit training at Fort McClellan,
Fort
basic
McCollum.
straight into AIT.
Yep. So you're military police. You get done with training, and then where's your first assignment from there, Nick?
Straight from there, I went to Korea for a year. That's where I met my wife, and we did 1 year there, and then I got orders to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, right after that. um, yeah, so then I did first assignment at Korea, and then next assignment at Fort Bragg.
So what? I'm familiar with the Air Force bases there. Osan and Kunsan, but what's the Army post over in Korea?
We were at Camp Page and Camp Red Cloud,
Okay.
just north. Well, not just about 2 hours north of Seoul,
Okay.
of Yongsan.
Yeah, well that's wow. That's pretty far up there, man. Wow. So that being your first assignment, definitely being overseas, met your wife, so thankful for that. And then you roll back into Fort Bragg. So at Fort Bragg, obviously a little different mission, I would assume, than in Korea. Um,
A
so
little
did
bit busier than a 2 point something mile perimeter base.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot no more sentry duty, man. So is that like the first point where you started doing I know in the Army it's a little different. It's like field unit and then something else, right? So were you with the police or with the grunts, I guess?
I was with the 118th Military Police Company. Basically, it'd be you do like you rotate cycles. One month on the road cycle, the rest was either training or on alert, stuff like that.
And at Fort Bragg, I remember when I went through military police investigation school, a lot of case studies we did in MPI school were two
I bet.
bases. Yeah, yeah. It was Fort Bragg and then there's one in Texas, a big huge what's the big huge army base in Texas?
Fort Hood.
Fort Hood, yeah. So every crime you could imagine, that you see on NCIS on the TV, like it all happened at those places too. So you did some real police work. So at some point there, you get an opportunity to go K9. Tell me about that.
That was a tough one because I it took a while to work my way up to make a team leader in the company, and I got jump master, uh, and I was like, "Hey, I'll re-enlist if you send me to canine school."
Right.
And they were like, "No way, we're not sending you to canine school." I said, "Well, then I'm getting out."
Right.
I've watched all the dogs work on the road. I've seen them out there training. I was like, "Man, I really want. That's what I want to do." So I fought it, and finally they were like, "Fine, take it, see what happens, whatever." This is back in what 98, 99.
Yeah.
Um, but once I once they accepted it, I headed out. I got to go to canine school. I think it was early 2000,
Yeah.
and that was like a big turning point in my career. Um, because I knew after going through school that it was going to be the one thing I want to do the rest of my
Oh,
working life.
yeah. Yeah, no doubt there, man. I say it all the time. Like I feel like I've never had a real job because I've always been able to do something I love. And man, unfortunately, but also fortunately, 9/11 happened. And what that did is made us a very valuable commodity, especially in the explosive detection realm, also the patrol realm as well. And we'll get into that with you a little bit later. So you get orders, you go down, and you and I, we weren't too far apart. 99, 2000, that's when I went through as well. So you get down to Lackland. So at that point, it's block one and then block two, I assume the same. So a lot of years ago. So once you get through all that, where's your first assignment out of Lackland as a K9 handler?
I ended up going back to Bragg,
Okay.
and then didn't work a dog at Bragg yet. It took time for me to clear the post and all that stuff. And
Yeah.
then my next assignment was in Kitzingen, Germany,
Kitzigen. What's that near?
outside of Wurzburg.
Okay. Okay. So,
So we fell under the same support company there for the dog teams.
I got you. So what was kind of the mission there? And is it just base police or base installation security?
Yeah. Installation security until that's when I got to Germany right before 9/11 happened.
Okay.
And then that's when everything changed, obviously.
So 9/11 happens, you're in Germany, you're working a dog, obviously everywhere around the world where US forces were, we all went on high alert, right? I'm sure they locked down the base for a little bit, getting the dogs out doing patrols. Now, was your dog over there, your first dog, or your dog that you were assigned there, was that dog a patrol narcotic or patrol explosive?
I started out on a patrol narcotic who
Yeah.
was ready to retire. And then I we had a new dog come in named Mike, and I
Mhm.
spent the rest of the time in Germany with Mike with a couple deployments.
Bro,
Kosovo
I,
and then
sorry, man, I mean to interrupt you. But so from Germany, where were deployments going from there?
I went to Korea, my first one.
Uh-huh.
Oh, no, Korea, I'm sorry, to Kosovo.
Kosovo. Okay. Yeah. I,
My
I,
first real deployment with a dog was Kosovo with my dog named Mike. We did 6 months there. Same thing was all the vehicle searches and going out on specific explosive searches.
yeah, and I think a lot of people forget about the Balkans, man. Balkans it was a pretty intense thing too. I went to Hungary and then into Bosnia, and that was my first interaction with the army, man. So they needed a 249 gunner, and I was qualified, so. And so I would get on a turret and we would do convoys from Hungary up through Zagreb, Croatia, and then into a base called Tuzla.
Who's
And
the man? Yeah.
I remember, man, we would round these corners and there'd be all these college kids out there and they'd be throwing rocks and shit at us. I'm like, what the hell? So I get back to the base and I called my mom on the DSN phone and she said, "You want anything?" I said, "Yeah, send me a slingshot." She said, "Okay." So she sends me one. I spent a whole day and a half walking around picking up rocks. So the next time I went on convoy, I was lighting her ass up, man. Um, but the army was wild, and this was like a guard unit, man. We'd stop at like the, uh, I guess, convenience stores, and we'd buy whiskey and all kind of shit. It was a lot of fun. But but back to that mission in Kosovo. Also, landmines were everywhere out there, right? Like,
Yeah, we did work with the Italians a lot and caches of like grenades and landmines.
yeah,
Um,
man. I remember like seeing farmers out in their field with one leg and an AK strapped across their back, you know. But that's almost a forgotten kind of conflict, man. But good. So you do Kosovo, you get back to Germany. Did you do another deployment from there?
Once I got back from Germany, that's funny stories how I met Chris Willingham. They sent me on a buy trip for the DoD,
Okay.
and sure enough, didn't take long for Chris and I to become pretty good friends.
So you went over so they attached you to the 341st for a buy trip to Germany. So
It was like a request for services in RFS.
okay.
Came down, and at the time, Scott Trockmore was our program manager over there.
Yeah.
And when he sent the tasker out, who wants to do this? I was like, I'll go.
Yeah, that's
So,
cool.
yeah, it was fun. That was a good experience learning.
Yeah. Yeah, I enjoyed it, man.
Learning
Yeah, I went on a couple of them, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I could imagine with Chris, you definitely had some fun.
no,
So
not at all.
not at all, not even a
Yeah,
little bit. Don't say anything. My wife's
nothing
watching.
we can talk about on podcasts.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, I get that. That's cool. So you do a buy trip over there, and that's cool. Was that like your first interaction with the 341st as far as like out of the schoolhouse?
Out of schoolhouse, yeah,
Yeah.
and it was a heck of an interaction to or learning experience for me to look at what we look at as trainers and handlers when we decide on a dog we're going to select, whether it's genetics and environmentals and stuff. So it was pretty cool for me at that young stage of my handler career.
Yeah, man, and it's pretty unique. You know, I talked to people out here. I recently retired from DHS, but I just started getting in the contractor world, and I talk to people and they go over and say, yeah, I went and looked at 10 dogs and bought one. I said, yeah, man, I remember looking at like 400 and bought like 80. So that's cool, man. I appreciate that. So from Germany. Obviously, that connection started with Chris. Uh, so if I'm recalling correctly in my mind, not too far from about that time frame when you left Germany, where'd you go from Germany?
From Germany, kind of the same thing. Got a tasker. But I was a kennel supervisor in Kitzingen, and got asked, "Hey, this mission came up. Not sure what it's about, but you need to go to. I think it was back then. Um, I forget wherever it was. I had to go to a skiff room and get my orders and read my orders, and I'm like, the heck? So they wanted me to go to Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Um, Found out it was with naval special warfare.
Okay.
That was my first Afghan deployment. That was the beginning of 2004. Kind of like I listened to one of the podcasts on my way up to Indiana that you had. I think you guys are talking about like when we first went in the beginning of the Iraq and Afghanistan stuff. We didn't have anything. We didn't know anything. We were kind of you're tasked out there as a dog handler and dog team, but who do you report to when you get there?
Right.
You get off the plane, you got all your stuff. Uh, Found the MP kennel, and then the MP kennel took me over to this secured facility, and they're like, "Oh, this is who requested this." Nobody knew who requested it, but heck, so I ended up working with SEAL Team 2 for 6 months,
Oh, wow.
which was my first experience with a lot of things as far as even without a dog, um, learning how to adapt to living with your dog with no kennels, taking care of the dog, sleeping in a tent with just cots and like 20 other dudes.
Yeah.
The kennels right between the cots, all the way to getting the dog on a helicopter. That dog I had over there had never been on a helicopter
Right.
before. So that was a heck of a fast learning experience in that 6 months of, gunfire with the dog, stuff, just on you really got to either adapt or you're going to be screwed.
Yeah. No, and that's
And your dog
legit,
can be
man.
screwed.
Yeah, that's legit because, the normal military police mission compared to the special operations community mission, totally different. I mean, you lived it for most of your career, but for that being your first experience, and wow, man, like we need to do other things with our dogs. Um, we're only hitting a peak of what we could be asked to do, and at that time, Nick, um, that's what was being asked of military working dog teams, right? Because there weren't enough dogs in theater or in any of the DoD programs. So it wasn't anything for a soldier, a Marine, an airman, even a Navy K-9 handler to get attached to a unit that is going to be in combat, that's going to be sea action in a different sense than what they may have pictured what they were going to go over there to do. So I would imagine knowing you, that piqued your interest very much. And that was probably the start of you wanting to do what you ended up doing.
I mean, it was crazy, man, from like going out for 3 weeks at a time with a dog and living out of a soft shell Humvee or a Land Cruiser. You're sleeping on the ground next to your position in the vehicle. I got my dog wrapped on my leash, like all the way around my arm.
Yeah.
Good thing is, a lot of times the guys wouldn't want to wake me up for guard duty on top of the trucks. They throw rocks at me because they want to get close to the dog.
Hey, there's benefits, there are pros and cons to it, right? So just from like a logistical standpoint, man, you get deployed out there and it's not like you carried in 250-pound bags of science diet with you, you
Right.
know. So you got to adapt and I've fed my dog deployed rice and chicken before. So I'd imagine, some of that happened with you as well. Is just
100%.
just figuring it out, man.
Like you talk
Um,
about the convenience stores when you have to stay overnight on a Target, find like those little Hodge convenience stores
yeah.
and get what you can, especially when you run out of water.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Not even thinking about that, man. And I was thinking about this. I was thinking about you before we started the call today, and I was really just kind of going, I think what people enjoy about this interview is a look at it from a different perspective. We we're pretty familiar. The world is pretty familiar with pulling up to an installation and possibly seeing a military working dog standing there, assisting, doing searches, doing whatever, just public visibility. Um, it was funny because I was like, well, Nick's occupation, a lot of it is behind the scenes. It's not stuff that you're necessarily going to know about. And it triggered this phrase I used to hear all the time when I worked for K2, behind the fence, behind the fence, behind the fence. I'm like, okay, behind the fence, behind the scene. I guess it's kind of the same thing. So you get through that deployment and thank God you make it back, you're unscathed, maybe wore the hell out, living in a Hummer for months.
Yeah.
But once you finish that up, what's your next assignment out of Germany?
Not long after I got back from that deployment was our program manager over there said kind of the same thing. Hey man, we're starting up this new program, specialized search dog stuff. I'm like, okay, what is it? And off leash route detection, explosive detection. So I said, okay. Like, well, we want your next move because I'd already at this point I'd been in Germany for almost 4 years. So they're like, go to Lackland Air Force Base, and you guys are going to be put together with a team of joint service individuals, and you guys are going to figure it out.
Yep. And
So
that
that's pretty much what we did.
Yeah, that's what happened, and I talk to people all the time about it, man. Orlando and I had a good discussion about even Paul about that's exactly the way it was. It wasn't hey, here's the protocol and the manual and all these things about how to get these dogs off leash, like figure it out. So I know you came a little bit later after we initially stood up, but. I don't know if you saw it, but we had dogs on zip lines running down the road and
Oh, yeah, we were trying
yeah,
everything.
anything we could do. We had like students and trees rewarding at source. I mean, it was definitely something. But yeah, so I remember you showing up, and we knew you were coming, man, like well before you were coming. Matter of fact, and I won't drop the guy's name on here, but when they had put out to 341st that they wanted an instructor from Army, Navy, and Air, or I'm sorry, Army, Marines, and Air Force. for specialized search dogs. There was one guy that he wasn't supposed to volunteer because you were already coming. And the way the 341st works is there's an Air Force colonel that's sitting in that spot, and that Army individual had submitted their name through the Air Force channels and not the Army channels, and got picked up temporarily. And that person didn't last long. The character of that person was not where it should have been anyway. So
Hey, you got me thinking.
it was a welcoming sight. I'll tell you the name after the show. Um, it was a welcoming sight when you showed up, and I remember when you first got there, boots gleaming like mirrors and looking sharp, man, and ready to go. But you were an easy fit into what we had already started doing, man.
We got lucky with a hell of a just a team. We all fit in, I thought, very, very well. I made me coming in from a little bit after you guys a little bit easier because it was welcoming.
Oh yeah, you listen, man. We were at the point where we needed all the help we could get, and I'm not sure if you got there before Paul or after Paul.
I don't remember either.
Yeah, I think you were already there because Paul had mentioned in the podcast that his first weekend there that Friday, we went out to some restaurant and hung out and, had some drinks. And he was like, yep, okay, this is going to be a good crew. So I think you were already there because he said he has a picture. I'm going to ask him for it of me, you, him, Willie, Orlando.
I know exactly what you're talking. I've seen that picture recently. I think I
Yeah.
have it. Yeah, I have it
Okay.
somewhere.
If you have it, I want you to send me a
I'll
copy
look
of
for
it.
it. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure I have it because I know I've seen that recently.
Yeah, yeah. That's cool. That's awesome, man. And I would just say to the audience, that vibe with that core of instructors, and we've talked about it some before, it was a very close-knit group. We did a lot of things together. We worked hard. We uh we were
We fed
definitely
off each
first.
other too. We bounced ideas off each other. Hey, man, and that's what trainers should do is talk to each other. And
Yeah, it wasn't like I don't think there was anything we didn't try that someone brought up to try. And we learned as we went, right? We got better as we went. I think when Paul came in, it gave us a little more focus on what the end target was supposed to look like, and some processes to get there along the way. Um, with anything, uh, especially something new like that, and being the first off-leash program uh, on record, it was a lot of pressure, but it what didn't feel like pressure, right? But I'll also say the selection of the handlers were really, really good. Of course, you got a
we
group of
have those
12.
ones. I have one in particular. I remember that
Yeah.
I wanted to get rid of, but I wasn't allowed to because it was a startup program.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, man, like the very first class, I'm trying to remember that first sergeant's name. He was a little short, grumpy guy, but I loved him, man. I can't think of his name, but there was a student that got he had a drinking incident like one of the first weekends. It was an Army student, and I had to take him up to Spivey. It was Spivey,
Yeah,
First
that's what I
Sergeant
was going to say.
Spivey. So I had to take him up to First Sergeant's office, and he calls me in first, and he's like, this is unacceptable. He's out of here, and da 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 da. So Roger that, First Sergeant. So I'm standing there, and I'm standing at parade rest, and the private comes in, and I'm pretty sure Spivey jumped on top of his desk, uh, kicked everything off of his desk, and he ate this dude up left and right 25 times over. And I'm Air Force. I hadn't seen an ass chewing like that before in my life. I'm rocked up at attention at that point, man, because I'm just like, what the hell? Anyway, so Sergeant Spivey was very, very he was very focused on what those students should be doing, and he didn't hold any punches. And the guy was like, "Well, I don't have a car to go get my bags." He's like, "I don't give a shit. You better kick them down the damn street." And literally, by the time I was leaving, I had to do some other stuff. I was getting ready to leave. I'm driving out of the old head shed, and I look and I see this guy kicking his bags down the road trying to get back. But anyway, yeah,
That's
of
awesome.
course. Yeah, we're gonna have some people that slip through that don't make it, but for the most part, and I don't know who I was talking to, if you look back at those, and I only know like the first 10 courses of people. I'm sure there were a lot other great ones, but when we were at the 25th anniversary for War Dog Association, I got to
Mhm.
see a lot of the students that we had in that first couple years, and it was very refreshing to see that they had gone on to have very successful careers and were just really good men and women, like
Mhm.
just good people. So you're there, and we're pushing classes through. We're playing poker in garages. We're having fun. We're pushing out warfighters, and talk to me about that, man, because you had been over there. You had seen, kind of what is already happening in Afghanistan. So that was great for us as a program to get you fresh off deployment. So,
Yeah. Yeah, from there we're trying to get dogs trained up, as best as possible, and safe, out there on the battlefield as best we could. I mean, our program's a force multiplier for sure. It's the difference between, uh, soldiers, airmen, going home to their families. You know, if we save some lives, it's definitely for sure on record that obviously why this program's become so big in the military.
yeah, no doubt, man.
So
And
a little bit of pressure there when you're training new kids.
yeah, I felt it, but I also knew that the other instructors I had, if there was something I was missing, they got it. They figured they would make sure that message got through. And that was the first time in my career where I was starting to get feedback from the theater that what we were doing was working. Always room for improvements in anything,
A
like
new
anything.
lessons learned, what you can, oh crap,
Yeah,
change
yeah.
this method.
And that's what I think I really enjoyed about you, man. You were very open with training. You're very and people just they look to you. Especially I'd watch the Army guys around you, man, because you were the only Army instructor that we had at the time. Um, and man, they were in awe with you all the time, man. Whatever you were saying, they were in awe. I was like,
No, I don't think so.
they most definitely were. I watched it myself. Unfortunately, or we
My
only had
wife will tell you, don't say that. You're going to give him a big head.
yeah, yeah, whatever, man. I don't care. I'm here to highlight you. I don't give a shit.
I'm
Um,
just kidding, man.
but I only got to see two of my own branch come through that were in 820th, and I don't even think they got utilized like they were trained to do. A whole nother story. But so I remember all of a sudden, man, after a couple classes, you're like, hey, I'm out of here. I'm like, huh? You're like, I got to go do some testing or something. I was like, all right. You're like, I can't really talk about it. I'm like, all right, I got it. You come back for a little bit and then, hey, packing up, rolling out, man. Talk to me about that if you can.
Yeah, I was honestly like we talked about just a bit ago about the politics of like, hey, we're the instructors on the ground with these guys every day, and we're setting a standard. But if we're not going to be able to follow the standard, and we're going to get from the top down, like, nope, doesn't matter. I don't give a shit. He's still going to pass this course.
Right.
So that was starting to get on my nerves, and I heard about Crystal Lawn a little while after a couple of recruiters showed up in my training area during the day, and I was like, "Can I help you? We just want to talk to you." I said, "Well, I'm running dogs right now. Uh, can you wait? How'd you even get on here?" you know,
Right.
they pulled me aside and they're like, "Hey, would you like to try something different?" And I said, "Sure. What is it?" "Well, we can't tell you, but you need to go to, you're gonna have to go um, to a assessment process." I said, "All right." So once I get away from the students, we talked. Um, And not long after that, I was on my way to back to Fort Bragg to assess for the Army Special Operations Command.
Right.
Um, and turned out I made it. Was put on orders. Was gone um, from Lackland within like 2 months.
Yeah. Yeah. It was quick, man. And
Yeah.
we definitely missed you immediately. You're kind of a hard guy to replace and because you fit so well into that groove of the instructor cadre that were there and what we were about and what we were doing. So I know there may be things for questions I'm about to ask you that you may or may not be able to answer, and it's okay, man. But tell me what you can about like that. Once you got selected to go to Special Operations Command as a K-9 handler, what does that look like? How does that start?
Um, so you go once you get there and you get sorted, you're at the kennels. Just kind of just a new guy. You haven't been to training yet, so you're waiting really for the next training course to start.
Right.
Um, so once it starts, you're all in. I mean, it's long days, long nights of just basic soldier skills tasks.
Right.
Uh, then once you come out of that portion, I went to another handlers course. Uh, all in all, about a year of train up before um, mission ready, fully mission ready.
Before you're operationally ready. I won't ask for specifics, but I would imagine in that kind of school, it's two part, right? So you got to learn the Special Operations Command TTPs, but also you're learning some new K9 TTPs on a different kind of beast that you hadn't had before. And and if you can talk a little bit about it, that difference between what we get as a standard military working dog and then what we get as that special operations command dog. Like I know it's a huge difference. I know it's a lot more training. Is there anything specific that you look for in that type of dog, that type of dog that you're looking for to be special operations?
Yeah, we need the dog to be social. We can't have those ass ears that we used to have back in the day. Um, they need to be able to work with the team
Yeah.
and be put in tight places where for transportation. Where some of those dogs that we used to work, you can't do that. You squeeze them into a small space with eight other people full of equipment. They're going to bite you.
Yeah.
So looking for those social skills and environmentals, whatever I can put the dog through. I mean, your imagination is, it's up to you. Figure out, all right, well, that'd be weird for the dog probably if you've
Right.
never seen something like that. So
Right.
just doing like on the spot training when
Yeah.
something pops out that you haven't seen before.
Right.
Um, and obviously we're looking for dogs that can be social, but can also eat somebody's ass.
Yeah, man.
They're few and far between.
Yeah, and I know that selection criteria is very high as it should be, because that type of dog is going to be doing missions that the conventional DoD is not going to do. And it was funny, yeah. One thing that you just said there, social and not quiet, right? Because you might be doing
Oh, yeah,
something that you can't give your position away because you got a loud barking dog. So, um,
quiet's huge.
yeah, yeah. So I can only imagine that. And I was just thinking as you thinking about, getting into those tight spaces, and again, that wouldn't be a 90-pound mile, not a pocket mile that won't hurt anybody, but
Oh, yeah. Speaking of that, I'm not looking for a big 90-pound mal. I'm looking for that in between, like 60-ish
yeah,
to
yeah,
70 at the most.
yeah.
And then because you got to think you're also fast roping out of helicopters with a dog hanging off of you. Uh, I'd rather be able to pick up a little mound, have to put it over a wall or do something with it that normally a 90-pound dog is not going to be the best option,
No,
especially in the terrain and the long working hours.
100%.
Need to be endurance. Endurance needs to be built in them.
So I had met Chris. I'd met him before we became friends. I'd met him at the 341st when he was the first sergeant. I had ETS'd out. I was back at Lackland, but I was working for the Marine Corps. And I get on the elevator to go up to the old head shed, second floor. The door dings, and there's a Mao with a harness staring at me by himself with no handle. I'm like, what the fuck? And I hear Fosco.
Oh, right.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm thinking about Fosco. Fosco is like that perfect size kind of dog, right? Not too big, not too small, but yeah, man. So you get into you're out there, you're getting into that. It takes about a year of training, and I would assume something I had noticed about special operations community is they have the funding. They have the funding to send their guys to advanced courses, advanced things, and I know there were a few contractors out there that were specializing in that arena as well. you can only get so much out of DOD.
Mhm.
But really, when you're thinking about that type of dog, you're also looking kind of like a street dog, a dog that is, I'm not gonna say a police dog, but it's kind of the police dog mentality too. And at that time there were only a few vendors out there that were doing it really, really good. So I know you had some training up there at some point with the guy I'm thinking about, and I won't bring his name up. But I think with that too, Nick, like how many advanced K9 courses were you able to attend over your special operations career? I mean, looking at your bio and your resume, it's just tons.
We usually bring in people to us um, because of our op tempo.
Yeah.
So when we were not deployed in our training cycle, um, we get whoever Franco Angelinis,
Yeah, there you
um, Pat Nolan's, George Hickox. We'd bring them in and we'd have them do a week of just those skills. So a lot of outside trainers that were brought to us.
Yeah, and just those names you mentioned, man, that's a whole diverse uh
Paul Bunker too.
yeah, whole diverse of off leash capabilities. Just a couple of the names, bite work, decoy. Man, yeah, that's amazing, and I think that's probably what sets that program apart from traditional conventional DoD is not to I came from MWD program, but we only can train as much as we have, as much support as we have. Um, but that community to have a budget to be able to just constantly train and upgrade, man, that's amazing. And y'all are proven on the battlefield time and time and time again, over and over and over. The stories of Chris and Fosco, they live with me forever. Um, and it was just amazing to me on how much these dogs were able to actually get done uh, with that kind of thing going. But so
I mean, you figure the multi-purpose canine is that's a lot of disciplines for a dog to be successful at. You know, 99% of the time. There's a
yeah.
lot that goes into that stuff. All the different disciplines that we train those dogs to do.
Yeah, and again, that kind of dog, that selection process, I just it has to be an amazing and critical process, and I would assume like the rate of acceptance is very low, which it should be, right? Trying to
Hmm.
get the top of the top. I'm sure there's a million vendors out there. Come look at my dogs. Come look at my dogs, and then y'all do something weird with a vacuum cleaner or a balloon and a nightstick, and the dog's like over in the corner shaking or something. Um, some kind of weird environmental thing, but yeah, that's cool, man. I know from there, from once you became operational, you were pretty much running and gunning for the rest of your career.
Yeah.
Um, and I know that fortunately for you, making rank doesn't determine whether you stayed on a dog. Uh, so
Yeah.
talk if you whatever you want to talk to me about as far as like any deployments that you had out there or the lessons learned, mission mindset, whatever. I'll just let you freely talk about it because I don't want to ask you any specific questions.
Yeah, we did. It got busy for a while in between those years of was it oh 07 through 11
Yeah.
with the surge. So back to back trips. So it gets hectic on the family and then it seemed like you weren't gone that long, and every time you come back, it'd be a different focus of what we were doing. So you got to really be fast learners and adapt again very quickly to wherever you're going to be and what your mission is that trip. Um, but yeah, I mean that's just numerous deployments and multiple changes
Yeah.
all the time.
I can only imagine, man, because from '07 to 2012, TTP's changed a million times over. And I was talking to somebody. I said, man, I remember like when '05, '06, I'd see the storyboards with the IED makers, and originally they all looked like meth heads. But by the time I get over to Afghanistan as a contractor, um, eh, they look like scientists. you know? They
Mm.
look like super smart guys. So I would imagine that detection became harder and harder. It wasn't as easy to detect what it might have been, so many years ago. But to the point, right? As those things change, the TTPs change, and also, with the Special Operations Command, it's not like you're working a vehicle checkpoint. You're out actively hunting and searching and doing these things and possibly under fire at the same time. Uh,
All the huge lessons learned, I would say, Joe, is like going from so their first part of their mission is a assault,
yeah,
so blood patrol work. But then after that, now we have to switch them to detection.
right.
That's always been a huge task for us. Probably one of the hardest things we have to do when we're out on outside the gate or whatever. But they learn pretty quick and worked out. It works out most of the time.
Yeah, the everyday DoD handler is not going to go uh, get a bite or two, uh, and then out their dog and then start seek. It's just
No, not much gonna happen. Yeah.
not a lot of that going on, man. So that's yeah. I mean, it's good. It's a good point, Nick, because the you got the dog turned on and then you got to turn them off and switch modes. And, I would assume, working within that certain group that you worked with for so long, it becomes like just secondhand everything that you're doing, automatic, not even thinking, it just working. Kind of like, you've been training dogs for 25 years now. You run a dog in detection and you're making corrections and adjustments and not talking about it, but nobody even knows what you're doing because you're just doing it, right?
Right.
Um, versus as it would be a brand new handler running a dog and you're going, hey, watch your leash, hey, do this, hey, adjust that, right? All those kind of things. So cool, man. Yeah, so 2000, I think maybe when I saw you, maybe 2010, 2011. Um, so you were probably running back and forth in between some things. Um, and then I remember I was out at K2 and I'd seen some guys from your unit had come over and they were talking with the owner of K2. I don't know if they were looking at dogs or looking at something. But we had the IDD program at that time. You know,
Right.
which was another good off-leash capability that you could utilize. Trained a little different than what the specialized search dog was. Uh, but definitely a good asset if you knew how to handle that type of dog. Those field trial champions, and you had mentioned Pat Nolan, and my mind immediately goes to that. Uh, because that's what he's known for. And from me, that's what I've known him
Oh
for.
yeah.
Heard that name. But that adaptability to be able to go from this way, get over all this with the SSD to being really, really quieter, being less movement and being able to move that dog down a road, stop them on a dime, bring them over, bring them back, and clear, 100, 200, 300 meters in front of whoever's behind you. That was a game changer, man. Um, and I saw a lot of success in it. I saw some failures in it too. But there was one group I was with in Afghanistan. It was the 2-4, and they were in Musa Kala for a nice long pump. And no shit, Nick, it was well over 100 fines. And one of my jobs was to go out and investigate to make sure it was a find and not a confirmation, right? Not
Yeah.
that somebody found it and then brought a dog up, but the dog was actually in front and found it. So I was super, super impressed with that asset. But as with anything, if you get too big, the quality just drops. It just has to in the dog game because what you originally have for a 100 dog contract, uh, the trainers, the quality of dog, the availability of dog, um, then you get a 400 dog contract. It's gonna go down because
Oh
then
yeah. Absolutely. We're
right.
seeing that now with dog selection.
Yeah, yeah, and the prices on dogs these days, man. I had been looking at a dog on a price since like 2012, and I had called a guy the other day that we know looking for a green drug dog, like basically. and that price was insane. I could have bought a car, you know. I was like, damn, damn, brother. I'm like, are you for real? He goes, yeah, man, that's the price. I'm like, oh my goodness, dude. And then I know the prices that your community pays for dogs. I could buy a really, really nice car. But anyway, it is what it is. So let's talk about post-military, man. So you spent all this time in special operations community, just getting racking up the learning, from each deployment, from each training, from everything that you had done in the program, and leading others to do it, training others to do it. So when you get out of the military, how was that transition, man, back over to being a civilian?
It was scary for me because I've been in the army since I was 17, and at that
Yeah.
point, here I am, 44 years old, and I can't keep up with those guys I used to work with anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, so hung it up, retired. Retirement, terminal leave, I guess, was quickly approaching,
Yeah.
and I got a phone call from one of my old teammates. Uh, he's like, "Hey, I'm on the board of this. Like, I don't know anything about dogs, but they brought up they need dogs over in Africa to do anti-poaching tracking."
Uh-huh.
And I was like, "Okay, cool." He's like, "I don't know shit." He's like, "I'm going to put you in contact with the CEO." All right. I'm like, "All right, fine." So he's like, when I finally called him, and he's like, how soon can you be here? I said, "In Africa?" He's like, "Yeah, all expenses. We'll book your ticket. You'll
Right.
have lodging, um, and it's good money." I said, "I guess I need like 5 days to get so sorted out after
Right.
my last day in the army."
Right.
There's shit like April of 20, yeah, April of 2022. I went over to Africa for my first time, and that was a 6 week trip. And I'm not kidding. You're staying in tents. But it
Yeah.
was probably the most coolest experience being out there. You're living on the
Are you
reserve.
are you just out in the wild, man?
Yeah,
Just
and
wow.
there's four of us in this camp, right?
Hmm.
Um, and you're seeing everything, living in the middle of it. It was pretty awesome experience. And then as far as the work aspect goes, that was a whole. Yeah, I'm used to working dogs in the heat, but that's a different type of hot.
Yeah.
That's Africa hot, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. I mean,
Uh,
every video I've seen of something in Africa, you can just see the steam coming off the ground, the heat rising off the ground. So, anti-poaching. So, was that more like manhunting, or was it like specific to where the dog is searching for tusk, or I mean, what?
they will do that, but most for what I was doing was man tracking for. All right, last area we knew where this poacher is.
Right,
But they go off of a shot system, so they have OPs set up all throughout with
mhm,
the African Rangers up there.
right,
And if they hear a shot, they try to between all the outposts, they try to triangulate the give the best location.
right,
So those guys will go out with their dogs and pick up the track, but it's tough because it's tracking and trailing at the same time because the
right,
terrain changes
right,
like like crazy. 100 meters up there, it's total different terrain than what you were dealing with back there. So,
right.
and you're going for 15 to 20 kilometers
Oh,
is
wow,
what these dogs are expected to do, and it's
wow.
bloodhounds. Same like the only different like we have a lot of bloodhounds and mouse and Dutchies. So that for the longer tracks, the bloodhound will start it out first,
Yeah.
and then when it start getting that proximity, getting close, that leapfrog up with the patrol dog. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I did 2 trips a year, and each trip was anywhere between a month to a month and a half.
So we have a mutual friend, also that was part of SSD that I think has been doing that as well. Mr. Jay Crafter.
Jay Crafter, yeah.
Yeah. W-
Um,
were you there with Jay or is
no,
something?
Jay, at the time, because Jay had asked me to go up and do a trip in Tanzania, and I couldn't. So I was in an area. The name of the city was Majete, which is like It's south of where he was at. I'm in Jeddah and then South Africa in Kruger National Forest, National Park.
Okay, so you're talking about you got lions out there, you got
Oh, yeah,
tigers out there,
arrow, man.
you got you got all kind of stuff that can kill you. How does the that must be a really phenomenal dog to stay on track of that with all those distracting, you know, I mean, you're in the wild. Yeah,
The environment, yeah, the distractors are crazy, but when we're training, um, the handlers, the handlers can read their dogs very well. And
yeah.
there's not a lot of handlers, so you can focus on three or
Okay.
four.
Yeah.
Um, Tactically, they're pretty good, and they know when the dog like they'll just take a halt and give a dog water, get it some shade. But
Yeah.
those dogs are so environmentally prepared for that weather. They go
Are
for
they running one dog or a couple dogs or like how does that work on a 15
sometimes it's
kilometer?
one depends on how long it goes for, until they find a dead end, like an
Yeah.
open hole in the fence
I
where they
got
cut in.
I got
Um, so yeah, it's fun training with those guys. They're really good and they get close. Like they're very soft spoken,
hmm
and once you build that bond and friendship with them, man, they message me on WhatsApp all the time. Hey Nick, how you doing? They're on
Okay.
my Facebook.
Yeah, yeah. Send me some chafing cream, man. It's hot out here.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's cool.
but
So you get out, just like probably a lot of the really good guys, you don't really have to look for a job, it comes. So you get out, you do a couple pumps over to Africa, doing anti-poaching. What's next?
in between those Africa trips, um, I was they asked me to teach the basic handler course for special operations for those guys. Um, those are 8-week courses down in Alabama.
Okay.
So I do like 6 weeks. I was gone for a lot those first
Yeah.
couple of years. I did 4 or 5 of those courses for the Army Special Operations, um, and then they hired me at Fort Bragg as a third group trainer.
Okay. So right back where you were, pretty much?
Yep,
Okay. So then you're a trainer there. Is that training dogs or people or both or
the handlers and the dogs.
okay.
Which is cool. A lot of the dogs that are at that kennel were those handlers were my first class that I taught of that course.
Oh,
So I
okay.
knew the dogs, I knew the handlers. So it made moving into that position a lot smoother.
Yeah, no, that's cool, man. So you're over there, you're doing that. How long did you do that for?
A little under 2 years.
Okay, so 2 years
And
of
then,
that back in the same community, but as a civilian. Uh,
yeah,
did you stay only at Bragg or did you deploy with them or
no, I didn't deploy with them. I stayed at Bragg.
okay, cool.
But I was looking for that job that was going to keep me home for a little bit,
Yeah,
not where I come home to my own house every day and my wife and
yeah.
kids, because I've been just gone so much.
Yeah, I get it, man.
And then I've realized I was institutionalized and having to go to post every day,
Yep.
and even though I'm retired out of the army, but I still feel it. I still feel those. Still got to do the cyber awareness classes on the
Right.
computer, like all that army
Yeah.
junk as a
Yeah.
civilian that we all never liked. And I stepped off, resigned from there. I had a couple contracts coming up. Um, I went to Australia after that.
That's right.
Did 10 days there for their training. Finished up with training Pittsburgh Police, their canine teams. Now I'm currently working up here in Indiana with Ultimate Canine.
Okay. And Ultimate K now, what kind of company is that? Like what are they putting out?
Whatever you want. Like
Okay.
they'll board and train. Um, they will. I'm on the police and military training side for the dogs.
Okay.
Um, they'll purchase dogs for you, which they believe is the right fit for the person that's requesting a dog. Pretty much any dog thing that you would require, you could probably get from up there.
And that's in Indiana, you said? Out of Indiana?
Yeah,
Oh,
just north of Indianapolis.
okay, cool. Good to know, man. I have three little small contracts myself right now, and there's always opportunity for growth. So it's good to have a really good network, which you already know that. It's nothing to pick up a phone and call a couple people and find a dog. Just like I did with you maybe a couple weeks ago. I talked to him about that dog. But I think the department had some very specific requirements for anyone that was going to take that
Mhm.
dog. It just wasn't something that I met. So I hope he placed that dog. But thank you for that. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, there's a big class coming up of police officers and over this beginning of the year. So we got a lot of work to do with these green dogs
Oh,
the
I
next
bet, man. I bet. So when y'all get them ready for class, are they finished or somewhat finished so the handlers can participate in some of that?
Yeah, they're finished. The dogs are trained until um, the course starts, so we know we have a deadline to meet,
Yeah,
and
I get it.
and then we decide which dogs are, you know, obviously you have to cut them like, okay, this dog's not going to make a good duel, but
Right,
it's going to be a great narcotics dog.
right, right.
Those decisions have to be made within that time frame.
See, doing what you love again, man.
I
Training
know.
dogs, green dogs, training people. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, there's so much that we could talk about with you. I'd also offer you, man, anytime you want to come on and have a discussion about a specific topic or a specific training, anything that you want to discuss, man, anything I can highlight for you, I 100% will. I know you are a master trainer in Upwater. Congratulations
Yeah.
on that. Matter of fact, I have an interview on the 12th.
Okay.
So I appreciate your vote of confidence.
You
I
got
can't
it.
wait for that. And I think Paul, I've got him scheduled to come on. We're going to talk very diverse K9 guy as well there, Paul Orcutt. So
That
yeah, man.
coach's knowledge is phenomenal on him. The science behind it is great.
Yeah, yeah. Every time I get on the phone with him, I'm like, yeah, I got an hour. Let's go. But it's good. I've done so much learning. Matter of fact, I'm teaching a detection class right now. And he was like, "Hey, we were talking about low thresholds and starting. What do you typically start on?" I'm like, "Oh, probably like anybody else, a quarter pound or something." He's like, "Drop it way down." I'm like, "Okay."
That's it. He changed my mind on that too.
Yeah, me too, man. I was like, "All right." And listen, Nick, I did it that night, and I was highly, highly impressed with these dogs, especially these spaniels, because it actually slowed them down. In which I
Mhm.
was trying to do anyway, right? I was trying to slow them down just a little bit. But yeah, man, I'm looking forward to what's the future for Nick. I know you were just gonna keep you'll probably be like Bob Anderson down at IK9 Academy, 70 years old, still running dogs. So
Until my back and knees go out for good.
yeah, yeah. I mean they can repair those. You'll be all right. But I wanted to leave the last part for you, man. Anything you wanted to send out to the K9 community, anything you wanted to talk about, any guidance that you would have for people out there wanting to be in this career field.
My big thing is always training never stops. If you can get a different look at different dogs, as many dogs you can get your hands on, problem solving, take all the information in you can from everybody, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, keep it because you're probably going to need it for another dog or another handler later on in the future.
Sure.
I've noticed our community is becoming a lot more open to other people's ideas lately instead of back some years ago. But yeah, my recommendation is training never stops and be clear, concise, and consistent with the dogs every day, and you're gonna have a good product.
I appreciate that, and amen to that, man. The more reps you get, the more tools you have, man. So I appreciate it, man. Hey, just one last thing. Are you going to San Antonio coming up?
I was going to, but now that I'm up here working with Ultimate Canine, we got to get these dogs ready for the next course. So I'm gonna miss this one, but hopefully we can do it again.
So I won't see you there. I'm gonna find a way to come see you because I think there's a few bourbons that we need to have. Uh, Catch up, brother.
I think my next trip will be ATK9 in October.
Okay. Well, I'll try to figure that out, brother. Well, listen, man, thank you so much. Thank you for your service, Nick. Thank you for what you've done for our country, for what you've done for the K9 community. You've always been a really great example of what a K9 guy should be. And I say K9 guy because I wouldn't call you just a handler or a trainer or a supervisor or mentor, SME. You're all those, man. And I always look forward to our conversations, man. I know we haven't seen each other a while, but it's easy to pick up the phone and talk. And I've always appreciated you. I know my audience is going to enjoy this. I'm trying to figure out where to put you in the lineup, but you did beat Chris Willingham. You will post before Chris, so I'm sure that's going to be a competitive something for that with you two, man. So,
Of course, always.
all right, brother. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you so much,
Thank
and
you,
God
brother.
bless you, bro.
I
All right,
appreciate you as well.
yes, sir. Take care,
And
brother.
all right.